Welcome to episode 6 of the T.O.D. Project, brought to you by Triumph Company with your hosts Marcel Scott and Jared Klein. Today on the T.O.D. Project, special guest Lindsay Crook, along with Marselis and Jared, will be going into Lindsay's life journey, the life of a professional sports agent, business and entrepreneurship, along with much, much more. Make sure to get connected with Triumph Company on Instagram at Triumph Company US, as well as visiting their website, triumphcompany.us, while using the code TOD10, that is TOD10, for 10% off your order at checkout. Also, make sure to subscribe to the TOD Project on YouTube and to follow the podcast on Spotify. Finally, make sure to follow our special guest, Lindsay, on Instagram at Lindsay Crook _. That is at Lindsay Crook _. With that, sit back, relax, and open your minds for today's episode. So, guys, welcome back to the TOD Project, episode 6, with your hosts, Marcel Scott, and yours truly, Jared Klein. We are here with special guest Lindsay Crook. Lindsay is actually my boss for my internship right now, which is crazy, but he is so kind. He was like, hell yeah, I'll come down and be on this with you guys. So I will ask you guys, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. I appreciate you having the time. I hate the word boss. I hate that shit. Man, that shit is so old school. And we're partners and all this stuff. So I appreciate you having me on, man. It should be a little bit of fun.
Yeah, it should be fun. Marcellus, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good and getting better. Gonna smile no matter the weather. Excited to put some value out there for the people. I think this is gonna be one of the best podcasts we've had thus far. Just excited and ready to get it.
Hell yeah. So, Lindsay, I guess we'll start it off hot and ready right away. So kind of tell the people
like a microwave.
Hell yeah. Kind of tell the people who you are, where you're from, what you do, all that generic introduction type of stuff. So go for it, my man.
All right. Well, so I'm originally from Australia. I was actually, Jared, you may not even know some of this stuff for real. I was a professional rugby player in Australia. I got to travel the world, do my thing. It was a pretty cool deal, man. I got to see some wicked cool places, meet some awesome people. And then, in my early 20s, I had some injury woes, and I kind of had this dream of playing American football. So I pretty much hopped on a plane and started visiting schools and stuff like that over here. And ended up sticking at the University of Cincinnati, played for a couple of years there. And then after that, I transitioned to the NFL agent game. So I became an NFL agent, started helping some of my teammates out, and then really just started, growing from there kind of organically. It's kind of turned into a beast of its own. And yeah, man, just helping guys out, it's a blessing, honestly, to be able to do what we do. There's a lot of people that don't have good intentions, especially when there's a lot of money involved, and especially in the NFL landscape. So it's, we're blessed to be able to advise some guys and give them some advice through life, and help them through what is probably and should be the best time in their lives. So that's my long story. That's my last 9 years packed into about 2 minutes, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do, where I'm from, and yeah, what I currently am into.
Simple as that, eh?
Yeah, I try and keep it short and sweet, man. I've done that. I've done a lot of this kind of stuff, and I've learned that less is more. If you can just keep the cliff notes, people just care about the highlights. Australia, rugby, football, US, agent. That's it. There's 8 years of context in there, but for the most part, man, that's the highlights, honestly.
It's good enough. I feel you did a good enough job. Granted, I'm a little biased. I know you pretty much already, so I guess.
Yeah, I know. There's just a ton of shit. Like it's been so wild, like just a roller coaster in general, that I'll just forget like major things that have happened just because in the grand scheme of things they seem insignificant, right? But when you look back through like those times, they were some of the biggest things that were going on in your life. But now, if compared to the stuff you're going through now or what you're into, like it's nothing really, which is crazy to say, but yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So Lindsay, I've been wanting to ask you about this because Jared told me you're an NFL scout. So like, what is the first thing you look for? What is that?
Agent.
Oh, agent. That's cool
I
as hell
guess
too.
do you clarify that as a scout?
Yeah.
Is it all in one?
I
Or?
mean, yeah, that's kind of like the same thing, right?
They are actually very, very different.
Oh, okay.
So an NFL scout is employed by so NFL teams hire scouts. The scouts are typically like the low level, let's call them data gatherers. They'll have areas that are assigned to them. If I'm based in Cincinnati here, so if I was a scout in Cincinnati, I would take, like Ohio State and Cincinnati and Kentucky and stuff like that. And essentially I'd be evaluating players and pushing up the food chain and essentially trying to make a name for myself that way. So an agent, what we do, we're the mediums for players going from college to the professional level. We are the liaison that negotiates the contracts. We do marketing and branding for them. We buy cars, we bought houses, we give financial advice. Like we're essentially the trusted advisor for these guys. And a lot of players, there's some players that are really, really well off. Some players have a great foundation from their families. Some don't. A lot really have struggled. One of my guys that I signed early in my career, I mean, he grew up without heat in his house, right?
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's just crazy, perspective wise. And
who was the player by chance?
His name's Keon Crossan. So he's actually on the Houston Texans right now. He's been in the league for this is his third year. He's just a guy he went to a small school called Western Carolina.
Wow.
No one knew. He played cornerback.
Oh, he on the corner about to back up.
He's nice, man. He's smooth. He's smooth,
baby.
Yeah, he's real smooth. He was, under the radar type of guy. I just heard through NFL scouts actually put me on the radar to him, and kind of checked him out a little bit. I was super athletic growing up, so I love uber athletic guys. That's just those guys play in the NFL, right? Athleticism sticks, man. The same as most sports. If you're athletic, you'll take yourself pretty far. And he was crazy athletic, and he ended up getting drafted in the 7th round. And the rest of history, man. It was kind of a wild ride, I've got a good little story about that. He, as I said, he grew up without heat in his house, and just, he's a grinder, man. He's just a tough kid. And, through this process, we're actually on draft day going into, it was the 7th round. And at that point of the draft, round 5, 6, and 7, NFL teams will actually start calling agents and saying, hey, we're not going to draft Keon, but we really want him to sign as a free agent. So here's what we're going to offer him. All right. And they have like a budget they can't really, they can't exceed. And at that time it was about 110 grand, something like that. And so I was getting calls, and a lot of the times like teams are just BSing, like, here's $2 grand. And I'm like, whatever, man. The Jets at the time, there was 2 main teams, the Jets and the Bears we were looking at. And the Jets offered him like $45K to sign with him after the draft. And I'm like, Keon, that's damn near half their budget. Like, that's history speaking, like, that's a very good offer. The problem with the Jets at the time, they had a lot of cornerbacks on their roster. So he would have had a really hard road to make it to a team. The Bears, on the other hand, they offered him 25 grand, but guaranteed he'd be the only player they signed. And he just had to beat out one player to make that team. And so I'm sitting there like, I told the Jets that. I'm like, look, man, I think we're leaning towards the Bears. And they're like, all right, what if we offer you 95 grand? And I'm like, oh, all right. Like, and I'm like, at this point, like.
So what percentage do you get out of the deal?
We get 3%. So, I mean, we're getting 2,700 or whatever it is. That's not where we make our money. I mean, we make our money on making sure guys stick in the NFL long term. That's really, it doesn't, if that was the only money he ever got, it would have been a waste for us. But we knew he was going to stick quite a while. But anyway, yeah, so we're sitting there and I was like, at this point, like you are on the phone and you're like, I'm like, all right, Bears, what are you offering? And they offer it. And you're just clicking to the next call. All right, what do we got? And I think the Steelers called me in the middle of it. They're like, we're interested in your guy, like Keon Crossman. And I'm like, look, what are you offering? They're like, $5,000. I'm like, nah, like, sorry. Like, it's just like at that point, you're going so fast. Like, I didn't have time to call him, right? And the Jets offered me that. And the guy's actually a good friend of mine now. He's basically the pro personnel director for the Texans. And he's like, well, call your client. The offer's on the table for 5 minutes. And I'm like, man, like, so I called Keon. I'm like, Keon, he's having his friends and family. Obviously, he wants to get drafted. And I told him, I'm like, look, we got two of the main offers we got right now is we got $25,000 from the Bears. I'm like, look, Keon, this is the spot. Like, this is the team. Like, don't worry about the $25,000. Don't worry about the money, because if you make a team, you're going to be making like 500. So that's the key. Don't go after don't look at short term, look at long term, right? You got to beat out one guy and you've got $500,000 in the pocket. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, and we got the Jets, you got to beat out like 6 guys, but they're offering you like $90,000. And he's like, oh man. And I'm like, so typically what I do, I don't tell guys what to do. I advise, hey, here's what I would tell my kid. You're a grown up man. This is door A, this is door B.
Make your own decision type of stuff.
Yeah, you got it, man. Because at the end of the day, if I'm making those decisions for you, like if it's the wrong one, who are you going to blame? Me, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the information. You're a grown-ass man. Whichever door we decide, we're going to ride and we'll figure it out. And he's like, look, Lindsay, I appreciate the advice, but man, he's like $95,000. It's like, I don't think I can turn that down, man. That's life-changing money for my family.
Never had money before, so yeah.
And I'm like, and then I'm like, so I'm on the phone and my phone starts vibrating at the time. And I'm like, and it's the Patriots calling, like texting me and they're like, tell Keon to pick up his phone. And I'm like, Keon, get off the phone right now. And they ended up drafting him like 3 or 4 picks later. So although at that point, all those deals, they don't really matter anymore. But it's just crazy. Like, it just shows you the roller coaster these guys go on, man. Like he had one offer coming out of college and he is now and played in the NFL for 3 years. He's going to play for a lot longer. He's going to play 10 plus years in the NFL, God willing. But yeah, man, he just representing humble guys and guys who mean well is honestly the biggest thing for us. I do not want to represent Johnny Manziel or someone like that. Like, it's not my thing. Like we call it now in the industry, we call it income to aggravation, right? It's not worth the aggravation you go through for the upside. The upside isn't there for that, right? Now, if you have like a Joe Burrow or something, absolutely. Like that guy's going to be easier to manage. Where Johnny Manziel, man, he's always getting into trouble. He's always doing this, that. He's worrying about, he's running his mouth. It's like, it's tough. Like, it's really tough. Like Keon is an amazing client. He doesn't get fined. He doesn't get in fights. He doesn't really go out. Like he's by the book. He's like, this is my job and it is what it is. And that's perfect for us, right? It makes our job so much easier, especially selling them to teams. It makes it way easier than trying to call and beg to get Johnny Manziel on the team, So
you don't gotta inflate any personality traits. It's all there for you.
Yeah, and it's always a game. Like it's a game. Like with most things, it's a game, right? So you're always burning political capital with whoever it is, whether it's a player, whether it's a team, or a scout. Like you're always in flux with, I call it the political capital, man. You're scratching someone's back for a favor. And at some point you're going to have, they're going to scratch your back. And that's, getting guys workouts on teams. It's like, hey, look, if you work this guy out, I may push a guy your way, or that doesn't happen a ton, but there's a lot of political capital that goes on and gets transacted in what we do for sure.
Mm-hmm. So Lindsay, this kind of podcast is called the TOD Project. TOD stands for Triumph Over Defeat. So, it really is kind of like it really stands for getting over that adversity and really, getting past that whole that whole roadblock and realizing that, hey, there's more on the other side type of stuff, you know?
Sure.
So I guess since you are, I guess, pretty early on in your agent career, what has been like that big roadblock that kind of set you back and then which made you click a little bit and realize this is what I want to do?
Good
Man,
question. Sheesh.
man, yeah. So do you want roadblock in the agent game or roadblock in life? Or any roadblock?
Mm.
I would say since we're kind of on the agent game, let's go
Okay.
agent game. And if it
Yeah.
stems into your life, then yeah, go for it.
Man, I'll tell you one of the hardest things to deal with. So we recruit players, right? We go out like college guys. We're talking to college players even right now, and we're trying to essentially sell them on signing with us over another agency. We do not always win, but one of the hardest things to do, it is incredibly difficult, is to deal with rejection of a guy not picking you, or picking someone else. And it seems so stupid when I say it to myself now, because it's a player, like there's plenty of them coming by, but over the course of it, like we'll recruit some of these guys for 2 years, a year, 2 years, and you form like genuine relationships with these guys, and players, and it's really tough. I like it. We're in the relationship game, and it's almost like if you're dating someone and it's like, man, I've been talking to them for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm picking someone else. You're like, man, that kind of stings a little bit. So every year, last year we had some guys reject us, and it actually really, it stings at the time, man. It really does. At the time, we didn't think our draft class, we thought our draft class was pretty solid, but it could have been a lot better. We had guys that, had Senior Bowl invites, or that we just missed on, that we just were like, man, what could we do wrong? You're always questioning yourself, and what could we do better? And a lot of times, even with relationships, it may not be what you can do better. It just, that person just gravitates towards another party or whoever it is. It doesn't mean that you're bad or you did something wrong. They have to make a choice. And, I spoke to a guy today, and he literally said, man, I don't feel like I can go wrong with any choice I make, but I have to make a choice. And that's the hardest thing, because you just have such good relationships. But anyway, yeah, last year was really tough. We just thought we were in such a good spot with some of these guys. And, when you get rejected, you put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. You built out financial models. You've been talking to teams about these players. You have been talking to their families, their girlfriends. You're just as involved as their life as anyone else is at this point. And
Dang.
yeah, it's very involved, man. Like it's kind of crazy. So, and then all of a sudden you've gone from, hey, I talk to this guy every week. We talk about life. We talk about relationships. We talk about this, that. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm going with someone else, and it's done. Right. That's tough.
Just cutthroat.
Yeah.
Oh
sure.
man, it's tough, man. And one of the hardest things is to deal with that. But also when you find out who they went with is even worse.
Oh,
right?
okay. This can lead into my next
like
question.
there's dudes, yeah, like there's agents out there that I'm cool as hell with, and I know do a great job, and I'm like, look, man, like I can't even be mad that we lost to them. Like it just is what it is. Like they're good at their job, and much like the same, if we got someone, they're cool, like we're good as well. So, but there's guys like that will not sign with us and sign with someone else, and it's like we come to find out, we're like, wait, what? Like, how did we not like beat them? And it's kind of like, again, that relationship, like you see your girl breaks up with you, but she not only breaks up with you, but she picks someone else, and then you see that someone, you're like, what the hell going, like how the hell did that happen?
You trying me for that, bro?
Yeah, like what the hell went on there? Like this is highway robbery.
Game up.
Yeah, so it's like it's very taxing mentally, especially this time of year, because all the decisions are made. So you've got to have really thick skin, and just kind of have belief in your process. You got to have a really sound process. A lot of agents don't. They'll just look at Twitter or whatever and try and recruit those guys, and that's fine. But you really have to have a sound process and have thick skin in this game, man, because rejection is a hell of a drug, man. It's crazy. But so we got rejected, and we at the time were like, man, damn, we missed on some good guys. But it's funny, the way things kind of pan out. We look back on it, in August this year, September, of guys in the NFL, and we look at the guys we recruit. One of the things we try and do is keep our data really clean. So we have like past recruiting classes, who were recruited, how much time we spent with them. And we're like, man, we spent a lot of time on this guy and he didn't even make a team. Right. Oh man, we were really upset about not signing this kid. And like, there's 2 or 3 of these guys that aren't even in the NFL right now. And not saying that I'm happy that they're not in the NFL, but for us, it's funny to look back now and realize like, man, you spent so much, I spent so much brain power and just emotion on, you're not going to bed crying, be like, man, what could I have done better? Like and because a lot of times they want those questions go unanswered, because essentially it's like, hey, look, I'm going with somewhere else. And it's never like, it's not like you don't get a post-mortem. It's not like, hey, can I get on a call and, what did we do wrong? What could do better? Like, man, I'm picking someone else. Like, who cares what you did wrong? It doesn't matter. I'm still signing with you.
Yeah.
So that's where it's really tough for the first, little bit. And then you'll see, and the problem, part of it is you see these guys around all the time, right? You'll see them at pro days, you'll see them at the combine, you'll see them at like the Senior Bowl and all these times, and they're interacting with other agents. You're like, fuck, man. Like,
do you guys just like give them like a dark look or what? Like
well,
across the field, you're just eyeing them up?
It's tough. It's really tough. So like when I was early in my career, I was with a big agency, and one of the players, he signed with another massive agency. We had a really good relationship, and he was just, I'll even admit that the agency we were with at the time, they just offered a better product. They offered better services, and I couldn't have blamed him for doing that. I would have probably done the same thing if I was in his shoes, but it still doesn't make it any easier. So him and I actually still talk probably every month. So I have I try and have very good relationships with players, regardless. It's a tough pill to swallow. But man, there's a lot of agents. There's 1,000 agents out there. There's about 100 of them that are worth half a damn. But what I try and tell guys initially is like, look, you're on whatever team you're on, like you're not going to get along with every single person on that team, right? Like on a football team, you're just not. There's 100 guys. Like there's guys that you vibe with, there's guys you don't, and that's okay. It's the exact same thing with agents. There's 1,000 of them. You're going to vibe with some. You're not going to vibe with some. Some guys are going to pick their agent straight away just based off that. Some are going to take a long time to decide. Some are going to take really short amount of time to decide, and that's okay. But the biggest thing that I think we do, or I try and do, is our job isn't to represent players. It's not. It's to help players find that agent that they go, yeah, this is my guy. Like that's our job. Because if we signed every guy we recruit, we'd sign 30 guys a year, and we don't want that. And it doesn't work out like that. But if we can help guys find their agent that they're really happy with, then we'll get ours no matter what. Like we'll be fine. But if we can help them along the path and find their right agent as well, like look, it's a win-win, man. And I think there's a lot of agents that burn bridges with players. Like, man,
right.
I mean, they'll send texts. Like it's crazy. Like, man, screw you. Like, or like if you don't text the guy back, if a guy doesn't text you back, I've seen agents like cuss guys out after like 2 days. I'm like,
what?
These guys got bigger problems than worrying about an agent right now. Like you're freaking crazy.
What's the worst thing you've seen? Like, what's the worst thing you've been through being an NFL agent as far as a player? Has a player like cussed you out? Have you ever had to like keep a player from getting into a fight? Any agents come up to you like, hey, I want him, you know?
No, man, there's, for real, there's some agents that like, I see at the combine and I'm like, man, we could throw down right now. Like my partner will say the same thing. He'll be like, he says to me regularly, he's like, if I see this XYZ agents here, like it's on. And I'm like, don't be stupid. But it's always about managing expectations. When expectations get out of control, that's where you have problems, right? So if a guy, let's say, thinks he's going to go 4th round and he's believed that for the last 3 years or a year or whatever it is, and you don't check it, like if he doesn't go 4th round, he's looking at you. He's like, you've been agreeing with me. You didn't tell me I wasn't going to go in the 4th round, but I just went undrafted. What the hell happened?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't hold up your end of the bargain. So for me, I'm very brutally honest, probably to a fault, with players. I'm very good at knowing where they're going to get drafted. I mean, I had a guy today that he's talking to agents and a lot of them aren't in the picture. They're like, look, man, if you sign with us, we're going to get you in that first, second round. And I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing you can do to go on the first, second round. I'm going to be completely honest. Whether you like it or not, you're not going the first, second round. No matter who you have, who you sign with, whether it's me or someone else, it's over with. Like, you can kiss that goodbye. Now, what we can do is we can work to change the other rounds, but you're not going in that first, second round. But there's just a lot of misinformation that gets thrown out there by agents. There's a lot of, just guys trying to make a quick buck. A lot of it, the agent game's filled with a lot of attorneys. And a lot of those people are, like, my partner's an attorney. I don't really like attorneys. I think they're pricks most of the time.
All the attorneys just gonna get on,
That's off the record.
It's what it is.
It's off the record. Yeah. I mean, they're like, and I know 90% of them can be pricks, but like, it is the way it is. And a lot of attorneys actually lack really good emotional intelligence and people skills, believe it or not. Like, they're good at talking. They're really good at like problem solving, but the people interaction, face to face or getting along with players, they really lack. They're very, I don't know. I don't know what the word is for it, but that's emotional intelligence is the biggest thing people can learn, man. Like, that is critical. And a lot of them don't have that. They don't possess that. So, one, they're not getting along with players. Two, they're just trying to make a quick buck. Three, they just have such low emotional intelligence. It's unbelievable. And that's the biggest thing we hop on, like, to our players, especially. Football is like this much of life. It is, you'd be lucky to play 5 years, 10 years maybe of pro football. Then you got life after that, man. Like, if you've got an agent that is only there for the 5 years, like, man, you're picking the wrong guy. You want someone that's going to be there on your wedding day, that's going to be there with your kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more about getting someone to help you through life, right? And unfortunately for a lot of these guys, I tell a story sometimes that, like, these players, that people get upset of how much they make, right? Which I completely understand. But if you flip it from their perspective, like I'll ask you guys, like, how long have you guys been grinding on your passion now?
Probably like 3 months now, 2.5 months, something like that.
For this or in general?
Just in general, like whether it's school or this, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you guys.
Oh, it's been 8 years for me.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like Jared, like, how long you been doing? You've been doing 8 years, right? How old were you when you started?
I was in 7th grade, so 13, 14 years
13
old.
years old. So that's what I try and tell these people, like, and you guys had the ability to, push your work, make money, but you're really just developing skills, right? To go out in the real world, or to do what you want to do, to follow your passion, right? So by the time you're 25, you're sitting there, whether it's this or something else, you're making a living and you're like, this is what I want to do for the next 30 years. And I'm cool with that. Like, that's great. These players take the same age. They're from their 10, 12, 13 years old. They're working on their craft, right? They're not getting paid for it. They work till they're 18. They go to college. They do another couple of years. Yeah, they get a degree, but it's in something that isn't their passion, right? It's not their craft or anything. Like, they have to do it. And
they declared to get by.
Yeah, they do it to get by. And
that's why I think about jobs. I think about jobs like that for entrepreneurs that are in jobs right now. They're just working that job for now and building up the skills and habits.
You're exactly right.
Make enough money from the business to get the hell out of the job, and then they're doing what they really want to do.
But you guys have got passions too, right? And you guys can do your passions forever. Like, for the most part, you guys can do this for the next 20 years. And if it's popping, it's popping. That's sweet. But
50-something years old, balling.
Yeah, for them, for football players, like, come 22, they make it to the league, right? And then they got max of, like, let's say they get 10 years. Yeah, they make this boatload of money. But for the most part, like, most guys are only going to earn, stay in the league 2, 3, 4 years. So let's call it $2 million. But their passion and what they've been working for since they were 10, they haven't got any of that anymore. They're starting from ground zero. You see what I'm saying? Like, they've been following this and chasing it this whole time, and they've got a window that is so small, and they've got to allow themselves financially to be sustained by that amount of money they made in that window. And then after that, they got to find a completely different passion, and football may not be their passion, but that's what they've been putting their time and energy towards since they're knee high. And that's the hardest thing to deal with. Honestly, it's just it's one, when guys don't recognize when their time's up, and two, like just the public perception. Yeah, these guys make a boatload of money and they're millionaires. They're not really. Most of them are not millionaires. But after football, they have no translatable skills to their next passion. They have none of it, right? They're sitting there, and that's what they've been investing in, is themselves to hit this goal since they were 10, and now they're 26, and they're sitting there saying, well, all right, I'm done with football, but like, what do I have? You know, I haven't been able to work on my craft. Maybe it's graphic design or whatever it is, like other people have. And at that point, you're sitting there, Jared, and you're 26, and you're like, man, I got my empire already built. I'm cool, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's where it's tough. Where like, exactly, like football's not a life sport. It's a very small window. And that's just what a lot of people don't think of that. A lot of people just assume, well, man, these guys are rich and making millions of dollars, which is true, like in some cases, but man, they have such a small window. I would not like to be a football player unless I'm like a quarterback. I'm not doing that shit. No way.
You're just getting mashed, just constantly.
Oh my God, man!
I can't imagine. I can't imagine
being like a mashed bananas, man.
Being like Adrian Peterson or something. Like he's still running back. He's like 45 years old.
No
like
way.
How is that even fun?
And that's where like people say like, look, oh man, I'll do anything for $1 million, and it's like, well, hold up, man, like. Hold up, like these guys. Yeah, it's funny. Like I just read an article this week. Some rugby players in Australia, and in Europe, were actually just came out, and CTE, because rugby they don't wear any protection, and like in the 90s and all that, in the 2000s, like they don't have any protection. That's coming out now. Like the interview, the guy's sitting there and he's like, look, I hate to tell you this, but he's like, I look at my wife sometimes and she just has to tell me her name, and I'm like, damn. Like he doesn't remember her name. And then like, he's like, I go online and I see videos of me winning the world championship. And he's like, I look really happy, but he's like, I don't remember any of it.
That's horrible.
It's horrible, man. And that's where it's like, he's like, if I could go back and do it all again, he's like, I just wouldn't do it. And that's like, I'm on the fence of like, all right, I probably won't I'm not saying I won't let my kid play football, but I'm definitely going to push him into other sports.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just not worth it, man. It's just,
you know what it stands for, right? You know what it stands for, Lindsay? It stands for not for long. NFL, not for long. So if you decide to do that career, understand that you may not do it for long, and then you need to build other skills and go into other things. Like there's players out there like Frank Turkington, Joe Namath. There's some other ones like I don't know if Ray Lewis is doing anything, but like Chad Ochocinco has his own brand. Like a lot of players have their own brand after. If not, they're done.
Yeah, that and that's critical. That's what we do a lot for our guys. The problem with the NFL, a lot of guys don't see it like that. They see I'm in the NFL, I'm making a ton of money, I'm good, man. I'm going to be great. The first thing we try and instill in every guy, man, look, you're not playing for your college anymore. You're not playing for your high school. We're playing, this is a business. We are making business-based decisions. We are not making emotional decisions. We're not, well, man, I'm so happy I'm making $600,000. Guess what? You're going to be cut tomorrow and you're going to be on the street. Like they're not even going to pay for your flight back. Like it's a business. And that's, the sooner the guys get that mindset, the better off they are. Because that's when we can really help, because the NFL does offer a lot of programs, a lot of help to guys. I mean, they offer, programs like they offer Harvard School business courses to guys, and no one takes them up on it. They offer that, like one of the guys, I forget his name. He's actually doing an internship at Adobe this summer. Like, you're like, what? Like, what is that? You can't, like, general people don't have that access.
I feel like that's a big disconnect with like professional athletes and like the common like 9 to 5, like casual, everyone else American, they look at professional athletes like, oh, they're getting paid millions of bucks, but like in reality, like if you're low on the tier, like if you're average, like you can have some sense of like stability, but like you still got to work your ass off to keep that. Like you're still working for that next check. Like there's no difference. Yeah, it's a pay grade. I mean, yeah, it's a pay raise, but like shit, you got to work your ass off just as much as the athlete does to keep.
My God, yeah.
Like,
yeah, and that's where like I try and tell guys, like I give the example of like, all right, you're a player. Let's say you don't get drafted, right? You don't get to have a draft day and all that, but let's say you make a team. Cool. You'll be making $600,000 this year. Great. All right. Well, Uncle Sam, he's taking 40%, depending on where you live. Like just, yeah, between state, federal taxes, you got to pay your agent, right? That's another 3%. So out of that 600 grand, you're already out. What? 250, 260. So now you're down to what, 340, which it's a good amount of money. But you came from nothing, right? You want to you want to go and give your family, you want to treat your family, right? You want to buy them a car or something, all right? There's 50 grand gone. So you down to like 300. All right, man, I got to there's just
buy a
all
house.
these things. You got to buy a house. All right, you live in Chicago, you got to pay rent, and you're in the NFL. You're not going to live in $1,000 a month. Like you're going to pay $3-4 grand, live in the middle of the city a month, right? All right, so that's 60 grand gone. You're down to 240. All right, man. Well, then you've got all right, I got to stay in the NFL. Grocery shopping. I don't want to go to the store. What if someone recognizes me? All right, I'm going to do a meal service or something. Man, you're looking at easy, probably $1,000 a month. Most guys even have chefs. So you're looking at, I know people that pay guys like $4 grand a month. So you're talking another 50 grand. So you're looking at 150K. Dang. You're sitting there okay, end of the year, I'm good. I got 150 grand in the bank, but okay, let's say you do that for a couple of years. You got 400 or 500 grand in there. Now you got to buy a house too, right? So you can put a down payment on a house, and that's pretty much it. If you don't advance your career after that, what the hell are you going to do from 26 to 66?
Have them join my business. They might as well come in, learn how to trade foreign exchange, learn how to do cryptocurrency.
There you go.
Also get an e-commerce store. They could be selling some type of clothing or whatever, like we do with the Triumph Company. Have them hit me up.
I will. Yeah, that's what we try and do. We try and at least educate guys. When you go through that scenario, a lot of guys go, man, shit, I didn't realize. And the worst thing about the NFL is the family relationships that you have to navigate. It's just everyone. You're in the NFL now, right? You're a millionaire. I got this business plan. I got a business proposal. I got this, that, and the other. Hey man, help me out. I need to look. Can you help me out? My wedding's coming up. I need $5 grand. And it's you're not going to tell your brother it's this. They're no, right? You the one that made it out of there. You're gonna help them out for sure. So it just gets really tough for these guys. So it makes it even worse when they don't have a good circle around them where, all right, man, investment wise, these guys just don't have any idea of business investments. Man, it's terrible. I had a guy, there was a business, and I'm I asked him, he's I'm going to invest in this. I'm send me a business plan, a financial, so we can look at it. And he's and the guy's pretty much they didn't have it. And I'm this is the first test like that. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business, if you're a startup, those are all basic questions that you should have the answer to. You should be able to show me your financials, show me your projections, show me a pitch, right? Show me a pitch deck or something. And they were we don't really have any of that, but we feel really good about where I'm how are you, if it wasn't for us being a gatekeeper, you probably would have invested 50 grand and lost that money. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it's really tough. Just there's a lot of people trying to get in these guys' pockets, man. So anyway, we try and be the honest people and do a decent job and be really close with our guys. That's the thing. They're like family to us, man. I'm best friends with all my guys, and that's the way I want it to be, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So this is another reason why a lot of these athletes end up going homeless, be on the streets. Some people, regular people, don't truly understand the inside of the NFL and how all that stuff works. So they're thinking that, oh, he's homeless. Oh, he was just buying a whole bunch of stuff. He didn't know what he was doing with his money. But they got a lot of people in their ears. They got a lot of pressure. They got a lot of people recruiting them, network marketing or multi-level marketing, or just always in their ear calling them, and doing their best to sell them. So they got a lot on the line. And I wish the regular person would truly understand that. And then a lot of them would be well, I wish I was Patrick Mahomes. I'd go out there and throw a football for $100,000, or not $100,000, for $100 million. Right. However big his contract was. But the thing is, they don't realize that the reason why they get paid so much is because they are the very top, 0.1% in the world.
Mm-hmm. That gets missed quite a bit too, man. Yeah, it's the NFL's a crazy game for sure. And that's the thing,
on an NFL roster, what's the percentage of people getting paid under $1 million?
Oh shit, probably.
That's a good question.
Probably over half of them.
Because I feel like that's the misconception. I feel like everyone thinks, oh, you're in the NFL, you're making at least $1 million a year.
Yeah, so rookies, pretty much all new players to the NFL. So every team will pretty much have, they'll have a minimum. So here's a good example. Like I just pulled out the Houston Texans. They have, there is probably about 12, 15 guys that are making over $1 million out of 53.
Ooh, that's
so
like,
it's less than that. So probably 60% of players are making less than $1 million. And the key is, they can be cut at any time. So like you can play 2 or 3, and depending on the contract, but like you can play 2-3 weeks, and then they can be like, hey, we just found someone better, man. We'll see you. You're at like, and one of like, he's from Canada.
Lindsay, your connection is a little bit weird. You froze up. You're kind of stuttering a little bit.
Yeah. Your connection.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on Zoom, you're frozen.
My Zoom is not responding. Hold up.
Yeah, your Zoom is frozen, but I mean, the audio was fine.
Am I back now?
No, your voice is fine, but it's just we see a face right here on the Zoom.
Yeah,
we're listening though. This is
I'm sorry, fellas.
Oh no, it's okay. It's the audio that matters.
So Ely, I guess. So Ely's he's from Canada. He's a good guy. He originally was signed with the Houston Texans out of college, and then he got cut the Jacksonville Jaguars same season. He was there for like 2 years, good relationships with everyone. They caught him. Then he's like, man, what the hell? He ended up getting picked up by the Cleveland Browns, and then they caught him. This year he played for the Cleveland Browns for like 2 weeks, caught him. He got picked up by the Colts, played there for like 3 weeks, caught him. Then he got picked up by the Texans again. He played there for he was there for 5 days. So like, he is like,
I remember
moving all over the U.S. He's got like
no time to get comfortable at all.
No, like, bro, it's like he's up and going like everywhere. Like he doesn't know what day of the week it is. He's like, man, I got to. So think about it. Like this whole time, he's got to get a place down in every one of these cities. He's got leases that have to be broken. He's got to find, like, he's got to ship his car down there. He's got to ship everything he can down there. And then all of a sudden he's traded and he's moved. Like, it's not a glamorous life, like being on the fringe of an NFL roster. Now he's an amazing guy. And he knows he's super blessed to play in the NFL. So, he takes it all in stride and he knows that, but man, it's not like people think it's so glamorous. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like Patrick Mahomes, look, he's chilling. Like he's making hella money and that's fine. But he is as you said, the 0.0000001% of people on this planet. And he deserves to make that kind of money. He's the best he's the very best in the world at what he does. I mean, shit, what value does that have? Man, it's hard to put a number on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's why LeBron James gets paid so much. Cristiano Ronaldo. It's the value. People understand when you become more valuable, you'll get more money. So do things to become way more valuable and stop going after the money and go on how you can become more valuable and change lives. And so people pay you all that money that you want. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. You hit the nail on the head. And that's where, we try and just help guys increase their value from more than just a player. Like, as I said, this football game is such a short time period. And if you can come out being better than what you were coming in terms of a person, player, life skills, finding your passion outside of football, man, you got life to live after this shit. And then really detaching. A lot of players attach their value to the game of football, which is really tough. So they finish playing and they're sitting there going, well, like, who the hell is my even identity outside of football? Right? Who am I? Like, football has been my life. I've been on the grind since I was 10. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you got to separate that for players. Yeah, it's sometimes way longer. That's the hardest thing. You've got to really, you got to break that mold for a lot of guys and let them.
Oh, snap. He just lost him.
He'll be back in.
You know what he just did? He confirmed to me that my kids, they need to learn to be entrepreneurs and just create things, be a creator, inventor, and then they can just do that for the rest of their life. Because it's not worth getting beat up and having to
What?
deal with all these agents in your ear. Why would I want a grown man in my kid's ear every day? Okay,
Well, I
anyway,
mean, like,
besides me, but
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with
okay,
your
nothing
son
wrong with it,
wanting
but
to
you know what
go
I'm
into the
saying.
NFL. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
But
Like
that and
you gotta know what your backup plan is.
well, I don't want my son to be dumb after he got beat up so much. I want my son to be, when he's like 30, 40 years old, like, hey, dad, I just made 10 million in one day. What's good? Like, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? All right, hey, look, boy, let me show you how much I made today.
Right.
Triumph Company statement right here. We done paid out this much to our employees. Don't blame me. You know, something like that. But anyways, we're glad you're back, Lindsay. But I got to thinking about like my kids. I was like, you know what? You kind of made the decision that maybe I don't need to have my kids play any. Well, I won't say any, but not play NFL or play professional sports. Get them guided towards entrepreneurship and creating things and do something that's more valuable to the world. Because I'm not saying NFL players are not like super valuable to the world, because kids look up to them and everything like that. But create something that maybe somebody would want to buy and buy into. That
There's more to
will
life
allow
than
you.
football.
Yeah, exactly that. That
You're
too.
exactly right, man. It's bigger than football, man. It's life. Like, we're dealing with life here. Like, football becomes such a small, insignificant thing, like, compared to just what people go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, you lose family members, or like, it's just such a small part. Like, yeah, it could be a real valuable part of your life, through 22, through 25, 26, you make a lot of money. But man, it is, when you look back, like, yeah, you're in the NFL, but man, your life isn't defined by those 4 years or those, the times you were playing football. Like, you're so much more than that. And a lot of guys don't see themselves as that. That's the biggest problem. It makes it tough, but you're right. The entrepreneur space, man, the entrepreneur space in the US, or even across the world, like, especially just with, just the way colleges are run over here, especially, and kind of framed up like everyone must go to college. You've got to get a degree to be able to be something. And I'm like, man,
That's a big one.
that's huge over here. Like, you got to get a degree, or well, you're going to be you're going to flunk out. Like, you're going to do this and that, man. I tell people, like, man, when I was coming out of high school, I had a 1.8 GPA. I didn't care about nothing but sports, and that's it. Like, I didn't care. I was like, this is it. I'm going after it, right? And
right,
man, it's like, yeah, you wise up a little bit, and like, I had to get a degree to do what I do today. But like, if my kid doesn't want to go to school, like, man, if you want to start a business, like, let's go, man. Like, you don't have to be successful. You don't have to go to school to be successful. That's where it's a huge misconception these days. And I think it's the entrepreneur landscape needs.
So
more people like you guys, for real.
Did you get a mentor? Did you get a mentor to kind of like guide you and show you how to be a proper agent? Because I'm pretty sure there's probably somebody that can like mentor you to get you to where you was at. You looked after and was like, okay, this agent I want to be like. Does it work like that when it comes to NFL agents?
So it does. It does.
Right.
But so I worked at a bigger agency, and I'm gonna be careful here. He was not what I thought he was agent-wise.
Wow.
So I actually learned how to be an agent. I think here's a bit of wisdom. I think you learn more from people on how not to do things, or how not to run a business. Then, like, so from him, I learned so much. I didn't learn anything about the agent game. I didn't learn about negotiating contracts. I didn't learn about anything like where it was physical, where, hey, this is the right way to do things. None of that. But I definitely learned from his mistakes and how he and his failings and what he failed to do. That's where I learned the most. I was like, well, man, this is how he did it. And really, that never worked out for him. So like, it's almost just logical reasoning, right? I'm going to cross that option out, and I've got these 5 ones left. So, let's brainstorm and figure out the best way to go about this. I think that gets missed a lot. There's always a learning opportunity no matter what. Whether even if someone's not good at their job, why are they not good at it? And how can you learn from the way they interact with people or do things? There was a lot of times where I was like, man, I cannot believe I work for these guys, right? I just can't. This is unbelievable. And at that point, you're learning how, even just from small interactions, you'll hear a phone call of how they're talking to people, and then people's reactions to what they're saying. I didn't know shit, but I knew that when someone reacted, to what they said in that way, I'm like, that's probably not great, right? How could he have handled that better? How would I have done that in that situation? But in terms of mentors, I didn't really have any as an agent, but I do have a lot of close friends. One of the things that I had going for me is I worked for a consulting firm, and they had it was not a startup, but they were a couple of years in, and a lot of really good business-minded individuals that gave their employees a lot of leeway. So they would give you a lot of autonomy. Essentially, they put you on a project and be like, "Hey, figure it out." And when you're a kid out of college, like they put you on a project and be like, "Hey, you're going to this client, you got to fix their problem." It's like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'll figure this out. Like I think that's the biggest quality that gets lost in a lot of people is the ability to figure it out and find a solution, problem solving.
Got to get thrown in the deep end to learn something.
You do, man. That's
Got to learn how to swim.
You have to. If you've got floaties on your whole life, like it's going to be rough. I agree completely with what you said, Jared. I mean, it's getting thrown in the deep end. While it sucks, I mean, it's like, oh man, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I'm doing it. Like you will learn more from that than anything else that you do. And that's, so I've been lucky with those opportunities. I've also kind of done it to myself. I came over here with 2 bags. I had 2 bags. I literally, my first day over here, I got dropped off in my dorm room at Cincinnati. And it was summer break. This is crazy. I tell people all the time, this is summer break. And no one was on campus, right? Like everyone goes home for summers, right? I didn't know this because colleges aren't really like, college life isn't a thing in Australia. It's like most people go to college and they just, for the day and they commute home. Over here, like I'm sitting there in my dorm room. I didn't have any bedding. I didn't have a pillow. I had 2 suitcases with me. I didn't see one person on campus. And I'm sitting around and I'm like, man, what did I do? Like, what am I doing over here? Like I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this is a dumb decision. I'm halfway across the world. I got no, like, think about it, I got no phone. Like this is 8 years ago. Like I had a phone, but I had an Australian SIM card in it. Like, that shit ain't going to work over here.
Dang.
I didn't have any internet. Like the dorm, like I didn't even know who to contact to get Wi-Fi. Like so one, I couldn't even tell my parents I was here. 2, and I'm like, man, get me out. Like I literally was like, I'm leaving. This was stupid. I've got no friends, no family. I'm over here by myself with 2 suitcases. Like, man, what the hell am I doing trying to play American football? Like, this is so dumb. So I was trying to
stuck it out.
Yeah, right. And I was trying to leave. The only reason I didn't leave is because I didn't have internet to look up. The Uber was like very new at the time. So I couldn't look up a number for a taxi and I couldn't even call them. So I'm like, I was forced to stay. And I'm like, and then at the end, one day, you get through one day, you get through the next and the next and the next, and you start building that kind of resilience internally. Like, man, I can do this shit. And that's, shit, here I am today, shit with an NFL agency. That's it's crazy to me. But I am a full believer in like, look, you got to get thrown in the deep end and you're going to fail hard. Fail fast, man. That's the key. If I don't like interacting with people that haven't failed at all. Because 1, you don't learn about yourself, and 2, the failing is the fastest way to learn how to do something, or again, how to not do something. And I think that's honestly back to the old agency we work for. That's how I probably learned so much, is not from what they taught you, but just from how they failed.
Nice. Oh, okay. This podcast was great. Oh my gosh, got so much value. Before we close this up, bro, like, yeah, I'm over here just listening, observing on a lot of stuff, dude. I'm over writing notes. Like, I feel like this podcast has made me want to be more aware of my negotiation skills, my emotional intelligence, who I should work with, who I shouldn't, how I can like hire people for our company, get brand ambassadors, like, me being able to build relationships with them. And it's kind of like that. I mean, except for we could definitely have our clients a lot longer than NFL. So I know it's a lot harder to do. But we got to go through pitfalls and we're probably going to go through some failures. We've had some of our hiccups and setbacks already, but I look at the long-term goal. I'm like, I want this brand to be on athletes. I want this brand to be out there all over Instagram, and sometime eventually, they'll be on one of our favorite players, or Maybe a rapper wears it, something like that can compete with like Under Armour and all these big brands. But you gotta have that vision, or you gotta have something to go after. And it's not even really just about just being the best brand to compete with those brands, but to create something that people really truly love to wear and they put on. And then like I go out in public, I see people wearing it and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
I remember we started this right on the laptop in the room on the Zoom, and now I done see somebody in New York out there rocking. They got the whole suit on, the hat on, everything. Like that made me feel good, and the fact that somebody's rocking it and loving it, and we've got pretty good feedback since we started. People are like, "Whoa, this looks very professional, and everything," and the name is a very good name, and oh man, I got high hopes for our brand and everything.
Man, that's what it's about right there. Like I ask people, like, one of the first questions I ask people all the time is, if you win the lottery, right? However much money is good enough for you, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, but you had to work 40 hours a week and do something to keep that money. What are you doing? And the way you talk about that is exactly what you'd be doing, right? That's the key. You have to do what you will talk about it all day, right? You will work on that all day because you love that shit. I'm the same way with the agent game. I will do this shit all day, but that's where a lot of people get it twisted. They don't ever chase that. They know it, but they don't ever do anything, or they don't even take baby steps towards it. Like, even if you have to start out, man, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour this week to that, and then it's 3 the next, and then it's 4, and eventually, like, I'm going to be running on this thing, but I know it's going to take time. That's where you have to find your passion, where, man, I will live and breathe this. Once you find that, man, it's super exciting. I can tell you guys are very passionate about what you do. So that's freaking awesome, honestly. Because there's a lot of people in this world, man, they never find their passion. They never follow it either. That's the worst part. Like, finding it's the hardest part, but it's criminal, the people that know it and don't follow it.
Ooh, that was a nugget. That was a nugget at the end right there. That was a nugget.
That we can end it off right there because hey, you know where the most they say the richest people are in the graveyard because of all the ideas they had they did not act upon.
You're exactly right.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Jared, you got anything before we close this podcast?
Well, I mean, I knew right when we started this podcast, I knew Lindsay would probably end up being on here at some time, because I knew a little bit. When we had the calls when I first started. I guess now I can't call you my boss. I guess when we started partnering together.
No, yeah, we're not gonna do that shit, man. That's crazy. Like, shit. To be honest, man, like, I'm not a boss. I can't be telling you what to do because you're the master of your craft. Like, kind of like if you're out here telling me what players sign and what contracts negotiate, like, that's your craft. Like, you run that thing. Like, you're my boss in that regard. Like, when it comes to that shit.
That's fair, I suppose. But yeah, I knew right away that you'd probably be on here sometime, just based off the past conversations we've had. So, I mean, this turned out to be exactly how I thought it was going to be. I knew it was a little late for you, but you can suck it up.
It's all good. Right. Yeah, it's all good. Look, man, a little bit of sleep, lack of sleep never really hurt anyone.
No. But yeah, anyways, all of Lindsay's links, his personal Instagram as well as his agency's Instagram will be down in the description of, I guess, the video on YouTube or the recording on Spotify. So go down and follow Lindsay and be updated with him and his story. It's an awesome story. He's an awesome guy. So yeah, thank you for coming out to episode 6 of the TLD Project. We'll see you guys next time.